Howdy TCG fans and Hex fans, welcome to Hex Hunter. I'm Mokog, and today we had some crazy news drop. Wizards of the Coast has filed an injunction against Cryptozoic Entertainment for the willful misappropriation of intellectual property. What's that? They're essentially saying Cryptozoic has copied Magic the Gathering in the form of Hex TCG. I can understand that kind of claim. There are a lot of similarities between them at present. I have a link down in the doobly for anyone who wants to go read the court brief for it. And it's not surprising from Wizards of the Coast. Anytime that there's been a game that's had a more powerful storyline behind it that wanted to use similar aspects, similar design methodologies that Magic the Gathering has, Wizards of the Coast has litigated to combat on those lines. They've been a litigation-happy company since about the filing of their original patents, and when they were purchased by Hasbro, it got even worse than that. But the situation reminds me a lot of what ended up happening when first-person shooters came out. When Doom was released, it changed the landscape of first-person shooters. Its style, its theme, the blood and the gore, all of its aesthetic aspects changed everyone's mind on what a first-person shooter should be. But then we started getting games like Quake and Half-Life. And initially, these things were called Doom clones. And it wouldn't surprise me if there was litigation against those companies originally too. But they all ran on different engines. They all made the first-person shooter effective gameplay, but they all did it a little differently. What we're seeing now is Wizards of the Coast has decided that Hex looks too much like Magic, trades on the ideas of Magic, and is attempting to cut into Magic's profits. Well, that's kind of a duh. They compete in the same game field, strategic TCG, and because they are strategic TCGs, they have been defined. How have they been defined? They've been defined by the only player in the strategic TCG market for the last 20 years. If you define the game style, and you patent the game style, then the only one who can compete is yourself? Well, that's kind of what we're seeing here. Wizards of the Coast is bringing the Nerf bat to Hex, and they're bringing them to court. Now, what's really dirty about this situation is once you get into the court brief, if you follow any of the Hex content creators, you notice that they happen to mention the Threshold podcast, the Hex podcast. What they've done is they've taken an example article from their site, a primer so that people can understand and transition from one game to the other as a use of understanding, and they're using it as a evidence of manipulation by Cryptozoic that they're copying Magic. What's not understood is that every game that's been developed over the last 15 years or so, and card games specifically, are compared to Magic the Gathering. You can find that style of article about every game since 2000. So because of that, one of the best creators for podcast content for Hex has basically been used as a weapon, and to me, that's dirty and that's shady. You know, I'm not a lawyer and I can't provide any legal advice, but as a concerned gamer and a former purchaser of Magic the Gathering and Wizards of the Coast products, as a formerly avid D&D player, goodness, I've got some stuff that I get to take on down to my store, because I don't know if I want to keep a Wizards of the Coast product anymore for their willful use of litigation to shut down their competition. I find their use of this litigation a cowardly attempt to restrict their game market, and in addition, all it does is validate in my mind the weakness of their digital offerings and TCGs and strengthens the product concept that Cryptozoic is putting out. This seems to be a big pile of lemons thrown at Cryptozoic today. And you know, it sucks. The brief itself was filed March 14th. It is now 2 months later. They moved from alpha to beta, and they're pushing ahead. They think that Wizards does not have a case. Maybe it's the same thing as, Apple versus Samsung. I could see them making a similar case. Wizards of the Coast is claiming in their brief that they get a slice of all that pie, and they're claiming the whole pie in that case. Oh my god, they even claimed the Kickstarter, they even claimed the Kickstarter backers' money as damages against Wizards of the Coast. Think about that for a moment. The willingness of 20,000 people to create an implementation as damages to Magic the Gathering. Damages. Think about that. Damages to Magic the Gathering. I understand that this is how business is done. It happens in every industry. It's not nice, it's not fair. Sometimes you've got to protect what you've made. But if you can't innovate your product or your digital product well enough that an upstart company like Cryptozoic moving into the digital space is about to hand you your ass, you've got a couple problems. When you've got Brian Kibler complaining about the worrisome aspects of NTGO and how your tournaments are handled, and how your tournaments can't be recovered, and then someone decides that they want to recreate the strategic TCG and provide better service, it's not the exact same thing as Magic. There are not planeswalkers. The takeaway from this is that Cryptozoic believes that they are not in infringement of the rights of Magic the Gathering. They have moved forward in the implementation of their product. They are continuing to iterate on their product to make it more special, to make it more unique, to provide it a greater character, and to move away from what inspired their game so that it retain and be wholly its own and provide gamers and TCG lovers a different experience that will satisfy them better than Wizards of the Coast current options. That's my current belief. You know what? If Dota 2 can compete with League of Legends, if Half-Life 2 can compete with Team Fortress, if we can have iterations of game styles with different types of intellectual property backing it, we have a more rich and fulfilling experience. Because you know what? Sometimes you just don't like the execution of their online product. Well, if you can't have a spiritual successor to it from another company providing you that different type of play, then your life as a consumer is less enriched, and no one wants that. So, thanks for listening to me ramble. We're going to keep an eye on, or I'm going to keep an eye on the story as it evolves, see what the responses are. If you want to keep up on that, you can follow me on Twitter, follow me here on YouTube, check me out on my Twitch stream. You'll definitely know that this will be talked about probably well down the line. But who knows, let's turn some lemons into lemonade. And as always, I'm Mokog, and this is Hex Hunter.